Greetings, bloggers, followers, and potters. Dustin here from Dustin's Dynasty, here at you again with another edition of this week's vlog. If you haven't been around a while, or if you haven't got to know me, my name is Dustin. I'm a middle-aged man on the autism spectrum. I've been living the autism diagnosis for over 25 years, although there has been inkling I've had it all my life. Through life, I've grown through life and become more mature. I've had a part-time job for nearly 16 years, and I've been living on my own for over seven. So here's a glimpse of what, life on the autism spectrum has been. So this week, I want to share, we've been continuing our mental wellness, how we've gotten into our new you, our new way of thinking in 2026. And this one this week is more of what we find that we need to find comfort in. Um, there can be things, we feel irritated, we feel uncomfortable, we feel like we don't have what we need sometimes, or we don't know how to solve the problem of what we're feeling. And sometimes we don't even want to accept that it's okay to do what we need to do to make sure that we have the comfort and pleasure that we need to have in our life so that we don't have to feel irritated, overwhelmed, and have stuff bottled up within us that to the point where it's unmanageable and maybe even possibly near a point of meltdown, shutdown, having an outburst, whatever that may be. Um, I think for so long in my life, I've held on to emotions or not even been able to identify said emotions without realizing, how damaging they were to me, or, how to work through them in an appropriate, healthy way, instead of, the old, at old fighting and, you know, nagging and wanting to match the energy in the room, which of course is unhealthy and can cause things to steamroll backwards into things that you just don't want to experience, and it makes you, in the end, it makes you feel bad. It makes you not be seen well by others, that really value you and look up to you. And I have to say that the last part of a good bit of 2025 and leading into 2026 brings a lot of changes and a lot of uncertainty that, sometimes it was given to me on the throw of a dime. And, it's been hard. Sometimes things you don't have the answer for. Have you don't have the answer. And sometimes when we as autistic people don't have the answer to the things that we need to have find comfort in routine and predictability, and it can set our brains to be haywire, and it can cause, dysregulation and wanting to have an outburst, or, in my case, wanting to be anxious and avoid something just out of the plain old fear of what could happen, or what could be said, or what could be done, without realizing maybe we need some reinforcements in ourselves and to help cope with those things, or help recharge, help recover. But it's also, I think, accepting that it's okay for those things, especially after decades of not feeling that it was okay to do what I needed to do without question, fear, or judgment. And I think part of that too is I've lived this autism life for so long that there's not been a lot of, when I first was diagnosed, and even maybe before that, there wasn't a lot of education on what to do as far as, caring for for the sensory needs, or when we're overwhelmed, or what to do. There were suggestions and thoughts and those sort of things. But what had been told to me wasn't really getting to me, and it really didn't stick. And because I always wanted to match the energy in the room that was around me, I wouldn't give in and wouldn't do what was needed, because I couldn't, when somebody was trying to match my energy and I was trying to match their energy, and I couldn't see that I always had to have the word in just as much as they did, and it was hard. And but now that, I'm living on my own, and, I'm realizing, things are different now. There's not as much latitude as there has been in the past. I have to, there's expectations and rules and things to be followed and things to be understood that we just don't do in the world. And sometimes, while the world for an autistic person is very complex, very challenging, very hard to navigate, it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that it has to be hard, but it may mean that when we are home and we're in our safe space and we're in a place where we feel comfortable and calm, that we do what we need to do. We use what skills, what tools, what we have at our disposal to be able to help us get that comfort that we need, without causing a scene or a disruption, not only in our own safe spaces, but also, in the world that we must navigate. We have to find things that help us, things that make us get through things. And it's not a concrete process. It's not, I try something and I like it. It takes time to get those things and then put those things to habit so that you can put them to practice and know that's what you do when that happens, so that it doesn't overwhelm you and doesn't make you, not want to think about it. But sometimes it takes reading your own body and knowing that when you're feeling a certain way or you're feeling overwhelmed, what can you do to avoid feeling the way you do? What if you're irritated? What if it's basically a game of what ifs. And I think a lot of our not those that care for the non-speaking autistic community can very much relate when one their individual or their loved one is feeling pain, how they're trying to figure out what is needed. What do they need at that moment? What's going to make them feel better? And I think just as much as a non-speak, it's a puzzle, a literal puzzle trying to figure out what non-speaking people want. Us that have the ability to articulate, communicate, speak, or however we need, it isn't concrete either because we don't sense what we need, and we don't understand it. What do we need? What might it work? Will it work? Will we feel more frustrated? Will we feel more irritated? All those things come into play, and it's a very confusing thing, but you have to try things. You can't just keep battling the same horse over and over again unless you don't try to see what works for you, what makes things better for you. And I think that's a big thing for me. I had to see the things that work for me. And on top of seeing the things that work for me, even in my safe space, I had to realize there was no shame or judgment or fear of doing it however many times it was needed, or if it was during a different time of the day. I was unable. I had to start accepting that, this is who I am. This is what I need. There is no shame. There is no judgment. There is no fear in having those needs. And that, if I need to take an extra shower or a nap or a break or just chill, that's perfectly acceptable. And, I'm in my own home and no one has to judge me for that. You know, as long as I'm taking care of my mental health and everything's in check, there should be no reason to live in fear of that. There should be no reason to, feel guilty or feel selfish because you need to do something that's for you. I talk a lot and I feel a lot and I breathe a lot about self-care, but it takes also doing it and takes also knowing what works for you and finding those tools and finding those ways that make it work for you in the best way possible, without defleeting anything that is required in life. And, with the winter weather we've been experiencing here in early 2026 with Winter Storm Fern, sometimes that looks different. Maybe that means reaching out to a friend. Maybe that means, getting in touch with people who need to hear from you and who you need to hear from. It takes effort both on both ends of the party, but when we're caring for ourselves, we can't sit and wallow in self-pity and feel sorry for ourselves. We have to do what we need to do to pick ourselves up and move on. And that can be finding the things that are helpful to us and work for us in our best way. And we have to be patient with ourselves, give ourselves grace when we do that too. So those are just some of the things that I feel is very important to share with you. I know this time of year is a very difficult time for many, and I am no exception, but we have to do what's best for ourselves in that situation. So with that being said, I want to thank you for listening today. I didn't want to keep on too long. It's late. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, tap a notification bell if you want to hear more. I do share a podcast every week. My socials are at Dustin's Dynasty under Facebook, Instagram, X, Pinterest, and TikTok. Um, Also, I'm on the web at addresses www.dustinsdynastyusa.com. And lastly, you can find all these things under Linktree. That handle is Dustin's Dynasty. Again, I want to thank you for taking a few minutes to enjoy your day with me. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there. Stay warm. Remember, you matter. You are enough. You are loved. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.